Hey, welcome back. It's Friday, and this is Brenda and Sandy Glaze. How are you today, Sandy?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing, Brenda?
Well, we got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it in. So that being
Totally.
said, let's jump right back to where we were just a minute ago. Sandy and I were just briefly getting started with a conversation about the truther community. The truther community in terms of where we are right now, everybody talking their truth, and that there's some sort of division going on within that as well. So tell me about that, Sandy. What were you going to tell me?
So what I was noticing with a lot of what's going on, what came up to me is gossip, the concept of gossip, because I'm hearing a lot of gossip going on, and I'm trying to stay in the observer position and just watch what's going on without any vested interest to any outcome. I'm just looking to see what's happening. And what crossed my mind is what's happening in the truther movement. And it doesn't matter, it's within the divide of what's going on regarding the health protocols that are being introduced, or what it is right now, that the gossip is what is causing a lot of problems. And then I started thinking, so the micro is within personal relationships.
Oh, froze on me there.
Macro is media is gossiping to get people to turn against each other. And so the conclusion that I drew was that the gossip from the media is basically just a macro of what happens when shallow people are talking about each other behind their back.
True.
And I'm looking at the divide and conquer tactics that are being played. So some people are of the opinion that Queen Diddaloo, or some people call her Dildo, that she is for real. And she was at Capitol Hill yesterday, and I'm watching people go up and just rag on somebody else because they're not convinced that she's legit. And what I'm figuring out though is they go in and try to convince everybody of their truth. So if you want to follow the Queen, what I'm learning is people don't know how to lead themselves. So I've seen a couple guys out there just ragging on people, you know, saying, why don't you support the Queen? Look at all the good she's done. And my comment back was, because she's done good things, a queen she does not make.
Right.
So what? If she was out here being an asshat and being really mean to everybody, nobody would follow her. Of course she's going to be nice, because that's how she's going to draw you in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So really noticing the game. So then if I can touch base on the second one, is the GoFundMe page. So everybody's freaking out that all the $10 million that's gathered from the truckers and the donations, that it's being stolen or hijacked, or it's not being paid out, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting here and I'm at the grocery store, and it's like, do you want to pay $2 to this charity? And I'm like, no. It doesn't matter where you go. Do you want to give to?
Yeah.
Kids Hospital, parents' consent. You then. So when I'm looking at all this, so why doesn't anybody question the charities they give to the money they give anywhere else? Because they're implanted and imprinted with thoughts that this is the only charity they can complain about. How many times do the kids come to your door looking for money for their ball team? I'll give them money, I don't care. But I don't say, you show me your books, young man, and you show me that this money is going to your team and not to your coach's dinner. Like, so we're programmed to go off like a loose cannon based on what somebody else is trying to get us to do, whether it's the gossip to control relationships, whether it's the collective gossip of media. And it's like, what the hell are we doing? So that's going to be my next post for the next person who complains about where's this money going? So when you go to a charity and you give to the little boys, the ball team or the hockey team, do you sit here and go, I want to know where that $5 is going? You show me. No. It's like gambling. You kiss it goodbye. You trust in your own discernment that you're doing the right thing, and you let it go. I'm not saying don't give to sick kids. People have to make up their own mind what charity they give to. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to look at charities. For years, I gave to big charities. I gave to, like, whenever there was a disaster, I gave to Red Cross. Then you find out that's a criminal organization. You should know the federal government will give $2 for every dollar you give. So I thought I was doing the right thing. Meanwhile, they're just money laundering in hindsight. I've forgiven myself for that. I gave to World Vision. Now you find out that's a human trafficking outfit. I've given to the charities. I didn't know. But once you understand that it's corrupt, you stop giving to them. But who says this one's corrupt when everybody's, right? So
Yeah.
we've all done it.
Yeah, I used to all the time give to sick kids. My oldest son broke his arm very badly when he was 12, and I had to take him to sick kids. He needed special surgery, and so sick kids was awesome. It was a phenomenal hospital. But I do recall standing there in one of the very long corridors and looking at this wall of silver plaques, you know, with all these names and all these contributions, and I'm thinking, wow, they get a lot of money here. Like, you know, I mean, I'm sure the government's giving them money too, but look at all the people who give to this, and big bucks, like millions of dollars, and some of it anonymously, right? Because they, whatever. And then I find out foundations like Brenda's and others, you know, are also funding them and persuading them to do their things. And you don't need my dollar.
And
Not
I
now.
know a woman whose son is in his 40s now, and she said he had damage from a certain injection as a child and had spent a fair bit of time at sick kids. And he would say, Mom, at night they take me down in the bed and take me to the basement and they give me shocks. Who's to say that any of these organizations that we all do the worship and the Hail Marys to are decent? But so the one movement that's here to break the status quo of the elites kind of thing and the politicians compared to the average person, everybody's all over fighting and putting down that charity and questioning where the money's going. But if you don't trust yourself enough, this is just my personal opinion. When I say you, I mean the collective. When we don't trust ourselves enough to use our own discernment, what if you gave $5? What if you gave 20? What if you gave 100? What if you gave 1,000? If you can't just say, I'm going to give that money and assume it's good, then don't give it.
Okay.
So a lot of these things that we're questioning right now, I believe they're implanted thoughts, implants, imprints, and it's really important to be discerning right now to decide what road we're going to go down, whether it's based on our own values, whether it's based on our beliefs. I'm finding some people are quite angry with the police right now, but then you hear the organizers are saying the police have been very helpful. And the police are cooperating. So we're all fueling this situation with confusion, with fear, with uncertainty. Oh my gosh, did I get scammed? It's no different than that $5 or $10 you give to the kids who come to your door. You kiss it goodbye. And if you find out, now you look at all the stuff they've got, the food they have down there, people are donating in so many ways. And somebody else sends me a message and says, I hear they're doing this to the food. Really? Like, stop. It's all gossip. Do you support them? Great. If you don't, that's your choice.
So I like that word gossip, and I'll tell you why. Because many years ago, 30 to be exact, I moved to a small town from Toronto. And when you grow up in Toronto, nobody is, you know what I mean? Like, there's no community really. Like there is when you have small neighborhoods that you've grown up in and things like that, but they're very small and they're very closed, right? So unless you're part of that and have been for your whole life, you're not, right? That's all. You're just the outsider watching. Anyway, when I moved to this very small town, now I'm in a very small town. First of all, you had a major shock to the system, right? Huge shock to the system. They're closing the stores at 6 o'clock. I'm like, where the hell are your hasty markets, right? Like, what's not open after 9? Nothing. I'm like, oh my God, where did I move? Rolling up the sidewalks, right? But what I found was something interesting about gossip. Now, because me moving to town, let me just explain. I was 21 years old. I had a brand new baby on my hip. He was 9 months old. And I had a visitor every once in a while who was the child's father that would come and see me on a motorcycle, big, huge van. So small town, gossip is a thing. What I learned about gossip was this. People are going to talk about other people. And in a small town, gossip is just current events. That's just current events. It's the opinion and the judgment that makes it yay or nay in terms of how is it helping or how is it not. I can tell you honestly that in that small town, the very first times I lived there, with the fact that everybody knew who I was when I moved there, I had tattoos, I had a nose ring, I had a belly ring, I had this baby and no man to be, really seen every day, just once in a while. And You know, like a lot of rumors circulated about me, not to mention the fact that I was 20 and from Toronto. So I dressed a little more, you know, like they knew you weren't from around here, were you? So, but I can tell you this, when troubles come down or go down the line, everybody knows. And in some cases, there was a lot of times where I was actually in I was fleeing an abusive relationship. And if people didn't know what happened to me and talk about it, things would never have got out. You know what I mean? So to me, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. So I love to talk about the word gossip just briefly there, because it has its good and bad, which is everything. Everything has its good and bad. It's all about the perspective you're holding with it, right? Just wanted to say that. I thought that was kind
I
of
know. So we don't always agree on our trainings, right? Or what we and that's okay. So let's go back to what the media is doing.
Yeah.
Right. So look at the gossip, the absolute distortion and what they're trying to bring out in the United States to stop the movement. When does it come down to a person's right to not be lied about, to not be talked about? When we say people are going to do it, shallow people are going to do it. But when are we going to make this change to this new 5D that everybody's talking about, the love and the light? Because there's no room for gossip. So sooner or later, if it's not good for the future, then it's probably not good in the present or the past. Like I look at it in terms of timelines. If we say gossip is a good thing going forward, we all need it, then what's going to change? So I'm looking at it just from a different perspective, because I'm looking at it from consciousness. And if we're looking to be the change, some of these old habits have to die off, because if we keep saying, hey, we got to have the dark to see the light, then that's all we're going to get. So how are we changing our consciousness and climbing for a higher outcome and a higher expectation? Is kind of where I'm coming at with this, right? So when I'm talking about the gossip, it's absolutely draining. People sending you stuff, and it's like, I don't need to see this. Do you know, like, people's perspectives out there. And it's like, so my question to the people who are doing the gossiping is, what are you fueling inside you? If you have to turn around and put somebody down, so somebody says, I don't like so-and-so in the movement, who cares? That's your prerogative. Don't follow them. So we have such a codependent society, and gossip is what keeps some of this in place. Because if you got to put somebody down to make yourself more powerful, you probably have self-esteem issues. So I look at it from a different, how are we going to be the change we want to see if we keep accepting what's been? I don't see it that way, and doesn't mean anybody sees it my way. And that's anybody has a right to see it whatever way they want, and I'm okay with that. But I just want to talk about the gossip and the triangulation. You know, so somebody comes out and posts on their Telegram channel that so-and-so is trying to split so-and-so and I up. Why? Because they don't want you two looking like you're gaining steam. So they come in and say, guess what so-and-so says about you? And that's also a form of gossip, that divide and conquer mentality that we're seeing. I see people putting down the police, yet the police chief in Ottawa has come right out and said, this has been an amazing group of people. They're peaceful, they're respectful, they clean up after themselves. He said nothing but great things about them. Then Trudeau's ex-RCMP guy, the sniper who wouldn't get the job and they fired him for it, he comes out and says, okay, all these kind of things are going to go down. You guys be prepared. Black Lives Matter, or sorry, BLM is going to come in and they're going to infiltrate and try to get into your group, and they're going to try to split all this up. So if they start mobbing you, you get away from them. And what if they don't want you to get away from them? So can you imagine? So this is the training that goes into the programming. Can you imagine if he said, okay, this has been a peaceful protest so far. The police chiefs, everybody has said it's been peaceful. If BLM or anybody comes in here and starts causing crap, you will be punished to the full extent of the law. But we don't do that. We tell the victims to back out and get a recording and call the police. So the whole system is absolutely hardwired to keep the bullshit in play. But people aren't cognizant enough to see how this game is going down. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking the only reason he's famous is because he worked for Trudeau and he says he won't get the job. All these big speakers that are happening down in Ottawa, they don't give a damn about the people. One's an ethics professor at University of Western Ontario. She got fired because she wouldn't get the job. That doesn't make her a hero. So everybody's getting caught up in all this nonsense, which is gossip, which changes, in my opinion, changes the frequency of the movement and what we're trying to accomplish. So how are we doing this? Either we change our reality, we create our reality with our thoughts, which means we get out of the garbage thinking, get that garbage can out of your head, just kick it down the road, right? Either we have to get out of that thinking to bring in something new, or we're going to keep getting the same old shit. If we keep getting played the same way, so the so-called powers that be know how to play this game. I got one guy down in the States talking about what's going on in Canada, and he says, we're going to get spanked real bad because the authorities are going to come down on the truckers. And I'm like, you're ex-military. Instead of coming out and saying what you would have done when you had all the money, all the guns, all the weapons, all the tools, all the skills, why don't you come out and say, if you were an underdog, what would you do to get out from under this? Programming. Still gossip because he's putting it out in the energy field. Don't get me wrong. I'm okay with this person. I'm not even going to say the person's name. It doesn't matter. It'd be gossip then. But I'm like, dude, so I know next time I see him go live, I'm going to get on and I'm going to just put that in the chat, and he can do one of two things. And he watches the chat, he will look at it and something will go ting to ting. And because everything's better when it's a man's ideal, he'll come out and say that in the next video, and as if he thought of it, because that's just what they do. Just noticing that about everything's better when it's a man's idea, right? Because masculine leads. Or he's going to block me. I don't care. I'll say it direct. So I'm just trying to get people to really give some thought to what they're falling for and what they're believing. And it doesn't, so because it's a belief, does it make it true? I have certain beliefs. Does that make it true? Maybe. I've seen some people who are so pissed with the police right now, everything that goes wrong, all they post is the negative to prove their point to their ego that the police are bad. I think we need to downsize incredibly. I think we need to change the whole structure. There's some good and there's some bad, like anything in life. But it's the person who makes the uniform, not the uniform who makes the person. So we really, I'm putting this out here just to see how we all get conned. Because I go on certain feeds and it's the same crap. Like, and people are getting, I'm not sure if they're waking up. I don't know what to do about it. So when I start looking at all of these being in flow, the other thing is some people are assuming that this is the end game. Is it? It's not the end game. We're in flow. So look at how we felt before do you remember when we were talking before the rally started? We're kind of, then all of a sudden one thing changes and we're picked back up again. And we have hope again. I think we both use those words, but this isn't over yet. So we might be in this energy for a week, and then something happens and we feel down about it or whatever. And then something else happens and we move forward again. And this is what's it mean to be in flow? I don't know, like this is what I'm trying to get, I guess, with people is how do we stay in flow when all this insanity is going on? You have somebody with an agenda. Maybe they don't want so-and-so to be tight and don't want them to get ahead. You know what I mean? Like it's immature. This is the immature aspect of our society, watching these little games play. And I'm not saying I don't get sucked in sometimes, but I try to be cognizant of it. And when I'm aware I'm getting sucked in, I pull myself back and I sit and watch and I go, why do I need to control this? I don't. Do you know what? So I'm going to use Goldilocks syndrome. Some people are upset because some people are really intense and hyper. And then they turn around and say, oh, so-and-so won't get off their ass. Well, who says you're going the right speed? So I'm hoping this is really going to bring people inside to really look at what they're buying into and what they're believing. Somebody told me, I don't want to say what they told me, but this is what's going on in Ottawa. And I said, well, if that's the case, I'm sure that food would have a certain flavor and you'd know you're eating it. Like that doesn't make any sense. But now I'm taking my time out to answer. So let's just say they're putting gasoline in food. I'm not going to say what the real thing is. It has a taste. You'll know what it is. Like you'll know. There's certain things that just have a taste. If you're eating gasoline, you know it's not mushrooms. So I worked in hospitality once, and the waitresses were filling the lamps over the coffee cups. So we fed this woman, she was a senior, lamp fuel in her tea, and she's sipping it and she's going, something's wrong with this. I think it's fuel. And I'm thinking, oh man, she's in non-smoking. As long as she doesn't cough in the candle, she should be fine, right? But like, you know, when something doesn't taste right. But my point is now that's the new rumor going out. And it's like, stop already. Just stop.
Well, I personally believe that this whole thing is just a beautiful exercise in consciousness evolution and elevation. And on the macro, we have to see that what we are observing is literally people learning what truth and discernment is. See, because we've been dumbed down for thousands and thousands of years, genetically modified along the way, you know, snipped from our DNA, like we only have 2 fucking strands left, for God's sakes, you know, and they're already trying to hijack those. So pardon my French, by the way, but it is Friday and I'm in Canada and we speak 2 languages here.
Hey.
So you get those on Friday. It's French, that's all. Anyway, the point is that truth and discernment is everything. And with the information world that we're living in, the information age that we live in, information is everywhere. The big deal right now is learning how to distinguish between information and disinformation. And there's so much shit out there. You want to talk about gossip? I can't get over the goddamn politicians standing there in the friggin' parliament on the floor, actually talking about that what was it, the Nazi guy and the this and the that, and there was one fucking guy, one guy with a Nazi flag. Get over it. Like one guy went off about how, this beautiful video about how you want to talk about sampling. You've got 1 million people there, and one guy stands out. He says, it's like the PCR test. You magnify anything by 1 million times, you're going to get it. You're going to see it. Gossip. It is gossip. It's what you're putting your focus on and what you're talking about, whether it's true or not, makes it gossip. And that's what I really think is it makes it that beautiful opportunity for everyone to, what is truth? This is a time for learning about truth, because if you could get a handle on your inner truth and the truth of your world around you, then on the macro, when it all starts to be revealed of the truth of our entire experience here, what that's really all about, because there's nothing like people think it is. Absolutely not even close. We have been fed a fucking story the whole time, and nobody really gets the truth until you start to unravel it, right? And that's the thing, when we start to realize one little bit at a time. So yeah, the disinformation and those people shoving that stuff at us and talking about that. And I kind of differ a little bit in your thoughts about that Julie Ponesse, I think her name was, because these are the heroes. That Sergeant Bulford, whatever his name, Bulford his name is, I think. These are people who, they are making a stand. They are kind of the heroes that are saying, you know what, I'm not going to go along. I'm not going to shut my mouth, and I'm not going to not talk about it. Kind of like me. I do not consent to you saying something. I can't be quiet.
So I'm saying there's a lot of heroes. There's a lot of people speaking up, but the only reason they're getting attention is because they refused the job. So my point is, a lot of people refused it, but it doesn't mean that you hold anybody in a higher regard or lesser regard, but hold yourself in a higher regard if you've got the common sense. Even the common sense, just to know that, wait a minute, something's not right here. So give yourself, elevate your own frequency by giving yourself the credit that you deserve by waking up as well and not participating in the lower elements, right?
Well, that's the thing, and elevating. So because that's the problem a lot of people are having. It's just like you said about this whole light and dark thing. A lot of people look at it and see, like, everybody has a 0 point where we balance out, but at the same time, what do you see as dark and what do you see as negative, and where does that sit for you? Because I look at a lot of stuff now, and with my macro vision, I'm looking at it and I don't see it as the negative it used to be. I see where it sits in the negative space, but I don't see it as because to me, I see the whole picture in a lot of ways. So I can't judge it for yay or nay or good or bad or any of that other crap. It's what's working and what isn't working. And this shit has been working its stuff along this planet for a long time now. It's done. We got to shift to this side now. That's what.
And I totally agree.
So
totally
that's
agree.
the truth.
But the darkness.
Buy it.
But the darkness doesn't want to lose, so they're going to pull out every stop to keep this crap show going. And this is what the point I'm making is, we have a choice not to feed into it by getting played with the gossip or letting other people sway our opinions. It's great to get the information, but you say, I'm going to discern this on my own and see if this makes sense for me, and be able to look at it, or say, can you back that? Can you show me where I can find the information to back that? And I got a piece of information on social media about a week ago, and I'm like, this is huge. And I said, can you show me where I can find the rest of this document? And he goes, well, the link is here. I went on the link and it didn't work. So I don't know how many pages of this document, but I got the 1 page. So I asked, show me. And he's like, yeah, the link is right there. So then we lost the feed. I don't remember who I was talking to go back and say, hey, do you have a backup, like anything else, anywhere else I can find this information? But, and it doesn't mean that he's doing my work for me. When people say prove it, no, prove it to yourself. If it's something I can or feel comfortable sharing, or I'm willing to do the work, that's also another way to put drag on people. You prove it to me. No, you prove it to me. You prove it so. No, you prove it's not so. So a lot of these little games are happening, but this is putting an energetic, what do you want to call it? It's putting a ball of energy over Ottawa right now. right? But people around the world are watching, and I think it's fantastic because there's going to be different rallies starting up in the, like, so many people are coming to be awake in this. But what's happening again is there's infiltrators. I remember one time I was down at one of the rallies and I had a sign that was pretty punchy. This guy walks up to me, and there was 4 of us women hanging out. We just met each other. Like, I was with another woman and these other 2 women, might have been 5. Anyways, and this sign, I've got a pretty punchy sign. I won't tell you what it said. And this guy walks up and he looks at my sign, and he looks at me and he looks at the other girls, goes and walks a few feet away, adjusts his hat, puts a mask over his face, like his kerchief over his face. So he's hiding who he is. So he comes up and he goes, "Tell me about your sign." And he starts filming me. So I know it was outing female politicians, female pedophile politicians. So basically he's trying to find out what I know. So he's just working me in the crowd, right? The other women I'm with just went right at him, calling him a coward, telling him he needed to grow a few things, including bigger shoes. I'll just leave it at that. They just went right at him, but he was trying to infiltrate to see what I knew, if I could name names. Do you know what I'm saying? So we have to understand the shit show. So maybe some people aren't going to these rallies, or they're not involved in it, and that's fine too. Doesn't matter. Everybody does what they want. But if you're in it, you have to understand how the game is played.
There's always
so the tables don't turn. Always.
Talking about desecrating a statue of a hero. They put a Canadian flag over Terry Fox. I'm pretty damn sure that happened to him when he was running down the damn road. I'm pretty darn sure that happened then. So why would it be an insult now? You know, things like that. It's just, but they concentrate on those kinds of things, right? So here's an interesting point that I really like that you talk about this, because I just caught an interview the other day. First off, Western Standard put out an interview with Kyle Kemper. Have you seen this yet? Excellent interview. But then the next thing I saw, which happened to be an interview with Kyle Kemper and some lady named Amina and Pat King.
Pat King.
Fabulous interview, right? What are they talking about? They're talking about the vibration. They're talking about the frequency here. And just like you're talking about, it's all this crap. Now, you can feel a very different vibration between Kyle and Pat. Major. But here's the thing. Ottawa, that's our swamp. That's where our swamp is. And when we can feel the vibration of that, we can do something. That's when we start to drain the swamp here in Canada, right? We know that that's where it is, because all tunnels lead to Ottawa.
Totally.
Just there. And you know what we're talking about there. The point is that we need to shift the vibration, but bringing to light some of this, you know, gossipy stuff, like, is what incites people to action sometimes. When you hear somebody unjustly criticizing or judging somebody else through gossip, sometimes that's enough to get you off the couch and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not right. Don't be like that. Or don't act, you know, don't have that attitude or whatever. Sometimes that's what it takes to get people up and going. And it saddens me to say that, to be honest with you, because I'd really rather it not be so. But
Totally.
it never gets people going. And that's why this movement has taken on, like, I have to tell you, I was stunned, because people I know who I thought would be right into this are like absolutely disgusted with this movement. And then others who I didn't think would give a shit are out in Ottawa. And I'm like, what the hell?
So we never know, but they're allowed their opinions and allowed to decide where they stand and all this. And I'm not criticizing them for that, but they're not gossiping. They're just saying what they think, right? Can we talk about Kyle for a minute? Sorry,
Kyle,
can we say that?
I was just saying it's all about discernment, and it's all about kind of I forgot the word I just used, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, just for whatever reason that cut out on my end. So Kyle is in Florida right now, and Kyle has different energy, and he's has had a different life than what Pat has. Pat is on the ball. Pat has a job to do while he's doing all these interviews. So he's still thinking about trucks he has to move, where he has to get his supplies, where he has to get rooms. So I'm going to use this as an example. I have a client come in one time and I said, how are you today? And she goes, I'm feeling peaceful. And as we're talking, we use the cone of consciousness. And she said, I'm feeling very peaceful. And it kept coming out during our session. Well, peace is at the 600 range. So I had her muscle test herself. She came in, I think, around 640 or something like that. And I'm like, that's such a great idea.
Yeah,
right?
6.
So guess what I did? I said, well, what am I at? And I muscle tested myself and I got 410. Of course I did. I had to be on my game in my head because I'm here facilitating what she needs to know and imparting information. So just because you're at a different frequency does not impart different value. We're going to just put that out there because we have to understand all of them. So Pat is on his game.
Try that. No. Yeah,
But my point, I want to just stress that because we're all taught to go for the higher frequencies. There's a time we want to be in higher frequencies. There's times we got to be on our game. There's times where we maybe need to be at 200, which is what you're saying, the courage to act. Because it takes a lot of courage to stand up, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a courage. Maybe you're going to go into shame because you can't believe you put up with so much crap for so long. So then deal with that, bring yourself out of that energy and into something else, right? So this is all good. Is that the same?
it's what I teach. This kind of the stuff I teach. It's exactly the 0 point. It's the balances. It's the different frequencies where we're at. Vibrate at the higher frequencies, and the lowers can't touch you. Because that's what I teach to people, right? Vibrational information. Because that's everything. That's
we
the
do.
basis.
We both teach that, right? So why this is so important. I just did an interview with a man, and he basically called his employers on social media. He said, "You're killing people." Like, you know, and his boss, he said he worked at a company, can't remember the name of the company. And he said a week after the bid hit, they got told that they've got a job for contract tracing. It's a technology company. He's going, that's odd. Like they hadn't even called out for it yet, but they knew as soon as the bid was announced that the lockdowns are here. A week later, he goes, we're told we got the contract. He goes, that's just too coincidental. So he came out and he started talking about all this. They fired him. He lost his job over it. But he said they were targeting him at work. He goes, my coworkers were targeting me. The boss was targeting me. They would put so much work on my plate and then criticize what I did when I got it done. He goes, I'm good at what I do. I go, you're a targeted individual. It's called constructive dismissal. So this is great. You're bringing it out. And then he came out later and he goes, you know, this has cost me a lot. So it's okay that we fluctuate through them. But the idea is that we do get back to that 0 point, that center energy that you can stay as observer. Well, all this is going on. That's what I'm talking about, the gossip. Watch what's going on.
Well,
if you can add.
Because the truth matters, because to me, as far as I'm concerned, even though when I hold my space for truth and I see all of what's going on, and I know, like I look at some pretty dark stuff. I know what's going on this planet, and I know what's going on underneath its surface and things like that. So you can't always, you know, most people couldn't know that stuff and be okay. You know what I mean? That would trouble their mind, like seriously. And I know because I've been dealing with this stuff for a really long time. But my truth is up here, right? Like when I'm in my truth and I know all that stuff, I'm empowered in it because I'm like, fuck it. I know what's going on. That's my power right there. Some people find that the negative, right? Because they're looking at it for what its fearful aspects are. So again, good and bad and everything. And it's all about where your discernment comes in and where your perspective lies to where you hold your vibration.
So that's part of it for sure. I
always get what you put out. So like you said, you know, stuff's going to keep coming to you. If you're in that vibration, like attracts like. That's a law of the universe that absolutely none of us have an exemption from or any kind of power over. We are subject to it because we are the electromagnetic resonance that follows in that vibrational field. That's what works through the field. So ultimately, if you're always in that you know, if you're always in that lower space, like 150 in anger or 175, you hold a little bit of pride even. Like I encourage pride, but pride from a place of acceptance and optimism rather than, you know, because as far as I'm concerned, people should be proud of their genius, right? Like, I mean,
but look at how that word was hijacked. So pride now means anything but heterosexual. Pride parade. So many things have been hijacked. So we're talking, you know, we're talking about the discernment and awareness.
It all fits together. So there's
somebody else's intention put that pride, the inversion out there. So we still have to see that in the collective, and not everybody asks for everything that has happened, right? But it's just interesting, just looking at what's happening. If we are making the shift, let's look at what's happening around us. So I'm not saying if the gossip is good or bad, I'm not buying into it, but I'm watching other people just get sucked right into it. And I'm like, so it gets to the point you end up you get bored just observing how people are getting played. But it's like, so why I'm saying this and wanted to talk a bit about this is it's so important to realize the games that get played, they're no different than dysfunctional relationships within a collective, whether a family, a corporation, or what have you, as compared to the macro. They're all the same games. But how do we stay alert and say, I'm not buying into this. I am going to look differently. Why am I upset that GoFundMe, if that's the case, has shut down the trucker fund? I should be mad at GoFundMe. We should be calling GoFundMe and saying, who do you think you are? That's who you should be calling, not you, like the collective.
One of the things that I thought was, fairly logical was, that they said that they're, as far as they know, they've got this $10 million. It's going to people. They don't know what's going to happen to it. They're kind of responsible for it in a sense, not really, but in a way, because if they're liable for it, if something was to happen that was maybe within their control or whatever, they'd be the ones sued for it. So right away, I kind of think as from a business standpoint, as we were talking about business, you'd have to cover your ass, right? So they had no game plan as to how this money was going to be dispersed among the people. It was going to go to all of them. Well, how the fuck do you know who all of them are?
Okay, so let's talk about gossip. That's not, when you look at the people in charge, that's not the plan. They've got it set up, got stations set up. And what's happening, they've gone to hotels and set up tabs. If the truckers need to go and have a meal, they've got a set of rooms blocked that you guys can go in and shower. How many of those do they have?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that they didn't actually have a plan, a business plan to prove that, right? So they didn't know, right? And again, like they would have been responsible for it. And ultimately, it has come out that they have it, and they have released it all. As far as I know, they've released every bit of it.
I don't know.
But at one point, and then they were releasing the rest of it. So I don't know. But again, we have to also wonder where the facts are and where there's hearsay. Because now hearsay comes into gossip too, right? Because
Totally.
broken tells us things get manipulated, things get twisted, things get distorted. We don't always get the truth. What was the truth? I don't know. It started 7 or 8.
And it's subjective. So there was one video on circulating, and there's this guy, I'm going to say poor guy, but I'm not convinced, but and he's got a jacket on, and he goes out and he's talking to truckers, and he's absolutely losing his mind. And he goes, stop with the horns, get the F out of my city. And he goes, I'm going mad, I'm losing my mind. I think they asked him why you're losing your mind. He goes, because I haven't slept in 5 nights because your horns are going off, right? And this guy loses it, and they're filming him, and he's telling him off. He's not being physically aggressive. He's being emotionally aggressive and posturing, but he's not he's not about to start an altercation physically. At least I didn't get that impression. But it's interesting. The truckers saw that video, so they decided they're going to shut the horns off at night and not make all the people in Ottawa suffer. But those people in Ottawa are the same people who do work for the government. So they don't have a problem messing with you within these policies. And then Ford comes out and says, you guys got to get out of that area. These restaurants want to open. Oh, really? So you look at the doublespeak. So the rest of the province can shut down. So when you are not getting sucked into all the gossip and stuff, you can see other things that are happening that can be amusing, or you can see the hypocrisy. And when you see the hypocrisy, again, that brings awareness back up to the enlightenment area. I see truth as enlightenment, 700 to 1,000. And we need that truth coupled with the love for sure to be able to make the changes and shift energetically and vibrationally into the new structure of where we're going with all this, right? So it's not a bad thing that this is all happening. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I personally think it's all part of the revelation of truth. It's all part of the unveiling, as it were, of this corruption and deception. Like it can't just happen in one area of the world. It's happening all around the world. Kazakhstan.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful thing. It's a domino effect. And we see it happening all over the place on many levels. So it doesn't really matter. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were finished. So it's great that we're seeing this, and we're seeing the role of the gossip and the triangulation, and we're seeing the games that are playing. And it's okay that we're bringing this out, because what is happening as these rallies start rolling out in other countries, other cities, we're going to see the same games. So even if us having this conversation right now and not judging the gossip as good or bad, just see it for what it is and how it undermines truth. Hopefully other people are going to be able to see that and say, oh yeah, I know what you're doing. Yeah, of course you're saying that the truckers are bad. Yeah, of course you're calling them the fringe element. Of course and they're going to be able to see the games, because what I have a feeling is, as much as the light is coming through, the darkness is going to repeat their patterns, because they only have a very limited repertoire of the games they can play. So this is going to give people a chance to look at it and go, yeah, I know that game. So did people learn from the GoFundMe incident and know that don't just have one account set up, maybe have 3 accounts set up? Because Canada has something called FinTrack. They can only give out 10,000 in cash per day, is my understanding. But FinTrack is the financial anti-money laundering program. The only 3 entities that are exempt from cash transactions over $10,000 are federal, provincial, and municipal structures. Of course, everybody else is stuck with 10,000 limit. So this is one of the holdups with the GoFundMe page, in my opinion, is so understand the structure. So we're talking about all this stuff, good stuff is coming out, but we're not talking about gossip just for the sake of gossip, but we're saying we're looking at all these games that are being played, learn from it. So right now we need to get our guys home when the time comes. Do you set up and do what do you call that, like an e-transfer to one of these people's bank account? Do you trust them? If you don't trust them with $100, give them 50. If you care about $50 and you're going to want to see where that $50 went, you probably should find another way to help out. Don't go losing your crap over it. You know what I mean? So there's lots of good is coming out of this. There's no doubt about it. So I just wanted to talk about the games again, so that we see this is how they knocked you down in the past. This is how they played their games and keep all the nonsense going. This is how they divide and conquer. Rise above it.
And they
Totally.
keep trying to, we do one thing, we get some freedoms back, and then he tries something else. So it's constantly this tug of war. But we have to know that the more the positive wins, and the more accumulative energy we have going on, enlightenment, truth, and discernment, because every time we have truth, right, we've cast out some shadows and we've illuminated some darkness. Otherwise, I mean, that's what enlightenment's all about, as far as I can tell. So the idea is more and more and more, it's building in momentum. We are getting there. We're actually increasing in mass. There's a fuck ton of truckers and people supporting them.
Totally.
I'm just like, I am so amazed at how this has been, what gets everybody off the couch. Like, I've been walking to these marches like you have for like a year and a half now. I'm like, where the hell is everybody? Right? I mean, thousands is great, but we need numbers like Europe, and
we're getting them.
they have like millions. They're flooding the streets, and we didn't do that here. Yeah. Crazy. So we are finally, going where it matters. And we've started, the farmers have started their convoys, their tractors up, and they're on their way. And the states it's starting, they've got a convoy headed to DC. All around the world, as you said, we've these wonderful convoys begun. So this is a movement of light. This is a movement of truth. And this is a movement of freedom, and freeing us not just from these restrictions and the lockdown bullshit and all this other crap, but literally humanity from the matrix, right? Like, we're breaking out of their, as you said at the beginning of this
control system,
right? They're putting this in our heads. They're infiltrating our minds. So World War III is an attack on the mind, body, and soul. Right. So
this is what we're talking about, and the gossip and all those games are how they stay in control. So it's great that they're coming out, right? And interesting, some of the people in charge in Ottawa made a comment about they're dropping barricades off in the middle of the night. 14-foot cement barricades, and they came out and said, we are well aware of that. We're talking with the police. They want people down there this weekend, not the trucks. So people are getting upset and assuming that's a bad thing, but not understanding. And then the people who are organized are coming out, going, no, we're working with the police. When they found out that people were having trouble sleeping and they were losing their minds for not sleeping for 5 nights, they talked to the conveners and they said, okay, horns off at night. Doesn't mean that if a stunt doesn't happen, that it won't start up again. But that's all part of being in the flow. It's not a static situation, right? So this is all good. And the cooperation that I'm seeing happening down there in the organization, it takes a lot of work to do that. I'm very proud of everybody that's involved. Even if you're attending, you're involved. Even if you're cheerleading from afar and you can't make it there, you're involved, right? So it's really, really a good thing. So this has been a good chat.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Yes, another good chat. Absolutely. And, we always got lots we can talk about. We can always go all directions with these conversations, which we seem to do.
And we hope that people take the opportunity to hear what we're saying and question themselves, question what the beliefs they have. Do you believe that when you give $2 at the grocery store, that's going to that charity? Start questioning things. Why are you caught up on one thing and not another? So when we look at the behaviors instead of the people doing it. Look at the process you have for deciding what is good and what is bad, and I'm not saying like in your own mind, how you perceive good and bad, but start questioning yourself. That's what I really am hoping that comes out of this today, that people really start questioning, am I being played? Why? What's my weakness that they know this is a hot button that they can collectively pull, like they can pull the switch and I'm going to react. What are my hot buttons? So good stuff.
That actually would be a good topic for our next conversation, because now you're talking about trust, and trust and truth are prevalent themes right now.
And people don't trust themselves.
And unfortunately, we've been taught, indoctrinated, and programmed ourselves to trust everything that we're not supposed to trust, and not trust the things we're supposed to trust, which that's this whole inverted bullshit, right? This whole, yeah. So everything.
This is great. Yeah, this is great. We're talking about this because it's opening up eyes, right? To trust yourself. And that's what it's always about, because you have your own connection to the universe, to that, whatever the information, everybody gets their own downloads, because that information is designed for you, your purpose, your personality, what you're here to do. So two people could ask the same question and get two totally different aha moments. Neither wrong. One is right for you and one is right for you. Why are we judging all this stuff instead of going in and saying, no, I trust I got the right information? So good stuff, right? For sure.
It's another thing to discern your truth, but then to trust your discernment, right? Because a lot of people do second guess or whatever else. And that's the key. We've all been taught we're insignificant. We are inept. We are, Neanderthal, basically, right? You're not even advanced enough for anything. I mean, and quite honestly, when you really kind of start to figure it all out, you think, man, we are so stupid. Like, it's taken us a long time to get where we need to be, and we're not even there yet. There's only a select few of us that are, but we're getting there. We are getting there. And it's like the 100th monkey syndrome. We've got this morphonic resonance that's going to play out, and eventually it'll just be in our consciousness again, who we are, what we're capable of, and why we're so fucking important, why we are so amazingly important, and divine, all of that stuff that we have once again been taught we aren't. Don't trust yourself. You're nothing. You're this. You're subservient. You're all serfs, blah, 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 cattle, whatever, all that. So I think.
And gossip is one of the mechanisms to make people believe that and police each other. So this is all connected for sure, right? Absolutely. So next week we'll have another chat, and yeah, we'll talk about trust, because that's such a big one, and why, like all the reasons you said, why we don't trust ourselves. We didn't get knocked down on our own, so we help build each other up to a certain level where people can fly by their own esteem again, right? So thank you.
Stand divided, we fall stuff coming to light, truthfully, right? So right, Sandy,
do you know what? I'm going to put all my information in the description box. So all my social media is in there. You can find my website if you have any questions, or you've got a personal block you want to work through, Sandy at endinggloballoneliness.com. Brenda's available here too if you want to talk to Brenda. Do you want to share where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at brendathine.com. It's kind of rudimentary right now, but it's there. You can contact me through that as well, brendathine@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Facebook in another 9 days when I'm out of jail again for however long. And then you can find me on Telegram and Instagram, and Connections Resource Center is my business page on Facebook, which is great. But I also have a YouTube channel, and you'll start seeing some of these videos coming out that way as well. Please also remember, as we do this YouTube stuff, hit the button, as they say, right? Like and subscribe our videos and our channels and stuff like that, because it does help share them. Absolutely. You know what? This is truth that needs to be spoken about, and some of it's not pleasant. Some of it's a little dense. I don't want to say heavy, because it's just dense, right? It's just a lot to consume, but we help you pick it apart. We help you sort through it. We help you process a lot of this shit. And that's kind of what we do and what we're here for. So, you know what? Find us and we'll see what we can help you with.
Totally. Do you want to send me an email with all your links on it? Because then I can just put that in. I just share your email address and your website, but if you want to put all your links in there, I put mine in the description box. I'll put yours as well. And then that way people can, it's just easier when we give them the links.
So right on. Great. Right,
okay.
Thanks. I'll stop recording, and we'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
Bye, honey.
Bye-bye. Bye,
joining.
everyone.